Should be visible now.
It is, ma'am.
And in case you wish to interrupt me in between, I would suggest if it is related to really the subject we are touching upon, then you definitely interrupt me, else we'll take the questions at the end, right? All right. So first of all, let us understand what is compliance. What are we trying to understand today, and what is the this 3-hour session going to tell us? In this regard, I have got a quotation which leads to my understanding of the word compliance. It is really disturbing to see how even intelligent people do not have straight thinking minds of their own. The pattern of the mind, whether towards conformity and compliance or otherwise, is conditioned rather early in life, that's what I was just telling you. Even at this stage where we are today, after having 20 years of experiences in such a difficult fields, we are handling CA, CS, CMA, advocacy. Even thereafter, if we are not able to, comply with the minimum requirements of filing some forms which are there in our universe, then it relates to somewhere to our habits which have been formed early in our lives. And let me not say that for everyone, but yes, this has an impact on our responses to the change in the universe. The changes do occur every day, and if we do not respond to them in the similar fashion, then definitely we are non-compliant to something or the other. That very much as professionals we are aware. So my presentation would take you through the compliances under the IBC, its regulations, its rules, the circulars, guidelines, notifications, the code of conduct by the IPAs. I have only taken up the code of conduct of ICSI IIP. You may refer to the bylaws and the code of conduct given by your respective IPA. And let me advise you that it is really important to visit the websites of whichever IPA you belong to and IBBI website for getting regular updates, plus getting to know what is happening in your universe, so that tomorrow you are not facing any non-compliance which you were not even aware of. Then the role of our IP in this challenging world. Definitely it is a challenging world, and let us see how an IP can cope up with these challenges, and what qualities are required, what personality traits are required for a successful IP, and what opportunities are there for an IP under IBC, not only as IP but as a valuer as well. So legal compliance, we understand that it is a process to ensure that an organization or a person follows the relevant laws, regulations, and business rules. Our regulatory structure flows from Parliament. We are all aware about this, but just a recap of this, where we are. We are only one of the 5 stakeholders in the IBC spectrum, but we are not to be ignored. Definitely, we are the most important one, because laws are laid once and they are to be followed every day 24/7 by us. One corporate person which is undergoing a resolution or a liquidation, one is the IP. It reports to the IPA and thereafter to IBBI on a very regular basis. IBBI and MCA are synchronized in their working. The IP has to relate to the adjudicating authority and the other stakeholders as well. So IP is having most number of these kitch pitch. You can see the arrows, the flow of information, the administrative reporting, etc. Everything is boiling down to the one most important stakeholder, that is the IP that we are. So one needs to be having that much of wisdom at all times to be applied to this job, because this is a full-time job as per my understanding, and this is not like our CA or CS professions which require our indulgence on client to client basis. Every client here is a full-fledged business in its own, and it requires our full attention and wisdom. So the regulatory structure further, let me just go through this quickly. The Parliament laid down the code, and thereafter the operationalizing and enforcement has been delegated to the MCA and to IBBI. The ministry is authorized to prescribe details, which is done through the rules, and to operationalize certain elements through notifications that we understand. The code requires that detailing of matters be specified by the IBBI and is done through regulations, and operational matters through the circulars, guidelines, and facilitation notes. So we have n number of documents to be checked on a regular basis, because MCA is representing the center, and it provides the rules, it provides the notifications, and IBBI is a regulator specifically created for this purpose, and it sends us the regulations, it provides us the procedural requirements, it gives us the operational details through circulars, guidelines, facilitation notes, in addition to the most important regulations. The IPA is a frontline regulator and is closest to the regulator, and has a mandate of promotion and development of the profession and capacity building of the professionals. That is why, and that is how we are connected today. Even in the times of COVID, we were connected. This is the IPA's job, that we have been connected so well, and we are never left behind on the academic front, and dealing with our practical difficulties, etc. Whenever there is a practical difficulty, these are the IPAs are the front runners in having group discussions, workshops, etc. on the most eminent subjects for the IPs. One very interesting fact I found: the number of words in each of these instruments reflect the involvement of these institutions in hands-on enforcement. The code has 70,000 words, rules have 42,000 words, and regulations have 182,116 words. We'll go through this, how regulations are so lengthy and why they have so much to be given to us, and why and where we are lacking reading something. Out of the 182,000 words, have we read through all of them? Regulatory powers of IBBI. Under IBC, no person can function or render services as IPA, IP, or IU unless it is registered with the IBP under the provisions of IBC. The IBBI has made several regulations for regulating the conduct of their professions or businesses. As part of its regulatory and supervisory powers, it has power to call for any information and records, carry out inspections and investigations, and monitor the performance of regulated persons, and pass such orders or directions as may be required for compliance of the provisions of IBC and regulations issued thereunder. So this is the most important aspect related to our working. Effective
कितना अपने को स्ट्रक्चर और अनस्ट्रक्चर कितना चाहिए?
Effective enforcement of regulations and healthy competitive strategies of business can establish markets as an institution in India that supports the public policy goal of inclusive economic growth and higher consumer welfare. So that was the overall broader objective of making IBBI a regulator in such an important law. The IPAs are regulatory intermediaries. They play a diverse role in the policy cycle. They help in interpreting the regulations. They translate them into practical and usable forms for the IPs. They provide capacity building. They monitor the compliances of IPs. They address their grievances and are empowered to take disciplinary actions on IPs. They are also empowered for contravention of the regulations. Let us come to the main subject of today's discussion, that is the statutory framework of IBC. Let me tell you that I have covered not only the code, regulations, rules, circulars, guidelines, notifications, facilitation notes, etc., but also the applicability of the other laws. One most interesting aspect of IBC that I personally love the most is the section 238 that gives it an overriding effect over the other laws. So there are other overriding clauses also in IBC, such as section 245 to 255. They deal with the amendments to various other statutes to facilitate the aforestated overriding effect. In order to ensure that the assets of the CD are not eroded while the creditors and resolution applicants negotiate resolution of insolvency during CIRP, the IBC provides for a moratorium period. So that is also in a way a overriding clause. Next is the SARFAC, wherein the banks and other institutions in their capacity of secured creditors were allowed to auction residential or commercial properties of the borrowers to recover their loans without approaching the courts. However, after the introduction of IBC, the secured creditors' interest in this sense has been compromised. Under the IBC, once a CRP is initiated, the moratorium is applicable to any action to foreclose, recover, or enforce any security interest created by the CD in respect of its property, including any action under the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act. So this is first such act which I have enumerated. I'll be taking you through other acts as well. I have not written the complete, reproduced the complete section 14 here, but I'm sure you are aware about the clauses under section 14, and they are very important for an RP to know before the start of the process, the start of an CRP process under him. The IBC has amended various taxing statutes in the following terms. For example, Central Excise Tax, a section 11E has been amended by IBC, whereby first charge is created in favor of revenue. This has now been made subject to IBC in addition to the already existing SARFAC and Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act. Under the second one, the section 178, it refers to the section 178 of Income Tax Act. Under this section, it provides for priority in appropriation of amounts set aside by liquidator for clearing of tax dues. Earlier, it used to say like that, but now section 178(6) has been amended to read as the provisions of this section shall have effect notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any other law for the time being in force. This is such a powerful section, except the provisions of IBC. So now, in the event an assessee company is in liquidation under IBC, the Income Tax Department can no longer claim a priority in respect of clearance of tax dues of the said company, as was provided previously under section 178, 2 and 3 of Income Tax Act 1961. The Customs Act has been modified to say section 142A, that was liability first charge on property, that has been amended and is now subject to IBC in addition to SARFAC and RDT-BFI Act. The Finance Act section 88, that was liability under this act to be first charge, has been amended and made subject to the provisions of IBC in addition to SARFAC and RDT-BFI. Other laws include, for example, arbitration. If there is a pre-existing dispute in relation to an operational debt, an application to initiate CRP is not admitted, and a dispute as defined under section 5 subsection 6 of IBC includes an arbitration proceeding. An application filed by an OC under section 9 of the IBC during the pendency of arbitration proceedings with respect that operational debt will be rejected in case there is any pendency of arbitration. However, due to the overriding effect of IBC, an arbitration clause by itself will not automatically oust the jurisdiction of NCLT under IBC if the other conditions for admission are fulfilled. There is no such defense of pre-existing dispute available under section 7 of IBC in an application by a financial creditor. A financial creditor is only required to prove default. It flows from the same that an application filed under section 7 of the IBC is not barred by ongoing arbitration proceedings. Moreover, once an application under section 7 is admitted and other proceedings pending before any other courts, including the arbitral tribunals, are stayed by coming into moratorium into effect from the date of admission of application by the NCLT. PMLA, as we all are aware, is still under its journey towards clarity, and we are all waiting for the Supreme Court final order in all the matters which have been tagged together. Let us understand what do these acts intend. The objectives of both the legislations are distinct, but they are significant to the Indian economy, both of them. IBC encourages the revival of stressed companies by safeguarding the interest of all the stakeholders. who are related to that CD. Whereas PMLA strikes against the money laundering offense to prohibit criminals from enjoying proceeds of crime, but can deter economic growth. Hence, the utmost priority is to strike a balanced approach under IBC along with catching hold of offenders of money laundering. Assessing the impact of a moratorium. The High Court opined, one of the matters, the High Court opined that Section 14 is aimed at maximization of value and preservation of the assets, while possibilities of its resurrection are explored during the CRP process, and to ensure that its creditors do not initiate actions which may impede the resolution process. In this regard, the High Court also noted that the purpose of moratorium is distinct from that of an attachment under PMLA. Therefore, the High Court rejected the submission that the provisions of PMLA must be read as being subservient to the moratorium provision. It was found that PMLA represents a larger public interest, that is the fight against crime. The High Court also noted that the moratorium provision is not liable to be interpreted as barring all possible actions, especially where countervailing public policy concerns are involved. To remove this ambiguity of overriding effect of either PMLA or IBC, everyone is eyeing the Supreme Court final order that is related to the subject of attachment during moratorium. Various cases have been filed by the ED, RP, ROC, COC, etc. This will outline the essence and scope of both the legislations to reduce litigation burden and smooth functioning of proceedings under both legislations. Labor laws have been clearly laid down over the past few years. More and more clarity has been brought about by various judicial pronouncements themselves. Dues towards wages or salaries of those workmen or employees who actually work during CRP are to be included in the CRP cost and have to be paid in full. First, as per Section 53(1)(a), and rest of the claims towards wages and salaries of workmen or employees under Section 53(1)(b) and C. Section 36(4), subsection 3, subclause C specifically excludes all the sums due to any workman or employee from Provident Fund.
अच्छा,
Pension
excuse
fund.
me,
Yes.
हरमीत कौर मैम,
हाँ जी,
या इसमें जो आपने लास्ट स्लाइड में जो पीएमएलए पे था,
हाँ जी.
so basically suppose there is an SFIO investigation or an ED attachment of some assets before the case has got admitted. So what happens to those accounts, and how does an RP deal with an PMLA angle or an ED attachment? How does it work?
That is what I told you, that various matters, including all such scenarios, are nearly covered under those cases which have been tagged together in one diamond, I think diamond power or something. That is the caption of the main case. And the other case have been tagged together in that. And there has been a status quo that has to be maintained. If the RP has obtained the possession back from the ED, I don't think there is any such case, but then that would stay till the final order in such cases is pronounced, or wherever the ED has attached the property, it will have a possession of the asset. Status quo has to be maintained in all such cases because the final decision has not yet come, and it is eagerly awaited from Supreme Court.
So how does it impact the resolution plan, Harmeet Kaur ma'am? Like,
see,
suppose
the resolution applicant will have to consider this scenario, that this decision is still not available, and the legal understanding of the possession and final possession of the asset, whether it shall be kept attached, it shall be retained by the ED, or it shall come back to the CD under RP's powers. So that RA will have to make such a provision in his plan itself, because the clarity is still not there. He might choose to wait, and if the process still goes on, keeping this fact aside that such and such assets or such and such value is logged, if the process still goes on, then the RA will have to keep such a provision in mind, because tomorrow the decision may go against the CD. In most of the matters, status quo has been applied by the RPs themselves, and the matters CRP is stayed wherever these attachments issues were being dealt with. All right. So we are aware that the code itself has clarified that all sums due to any workman or employee from the provident fund or pension fund or gratuity fund, they are not included in the liquidation estate assets, and therefore the liquidator will have no claim over such dues. The Supreme Court has also directed that if RP has not submitted the claims towards the wages or salaries as part of CRP cost, still the claims submitted or to be submitted by the appellant workers will have to be adjudicated upon and considered by the liquidator. The liquidator has to consider and adjudicate whether the CD was a going concern during the CRP, how many workmen or employees actually worked while the CD was a going concern, and that will form part of the CRP costs and will have to be paid in full on the top level under section 53 1A as CRP costs are paid. Other laws, the Supreme Court has held that the provisions of IBC would have an overriding effect over the T Act. That has been made very clear under Duncan's case, and even without such consent of the central government, the insolvency proceedings under section 7 or 9 of the IBC can be initiated by the operational creditor and they would be maintainable. The effect of moratorium on the actions undertaken under other statutes coupled with the overriding provision under the IBC has given it a lot of teeth in order to achieve the object of time-bound resolution of insolvency and maximization of assets of the CD during the process of resolution. Most of the statutes having a penal element have the provision of attachment of the properties on the erring entity. The question then becomes whether the relevant provisions under the said statute and IBC can be harmonized or are inconsistent. So very important test of finding whether IBC has an overriding effect lies on the fact that whether the the relevant provisions under the IBC and the other statute are in conflict, are inconsistent to each other, or can be harmonized practically. However, the answer is not always straightforward. However, it will be prudent if the courts, while deciding this issue, can be mindful of the effect that their judgment can have prudent business transactions will also get affected by their judgment, and the manner in which the whole ecosystem of attempt to create a value addition in case of defunct companies under IBC, that will be impacted. So any order, any judgment under such while deciding whether that IBC has an overriding effect of over such attachment, or whether the other statute, the authority under the other statute will have an upper hand, will have a deep impact on the basic objectives of IBC, that is the resolution of the otherwise viable business if possible. So I request all of you to have a look at the list of these acts. You might find them to be familiar because we have read them all, we know them all, but there are certain minute details under each of these acts which are applicable on the corporate, on the CD, or the corporate person which is undergoing CRP or the liquidation, and the way they are impacting, the way they are affecting the working of the CD. RP will also have to adhere to those conditions and those norms. One very important aspect is, for example, income tax, GST, etc. We all have a general knowledge about, general awareness about these laws, and the Companies Act, of course, and we keep on complying with the provisions of these general laws: Companies Act, Partnership Act, LLP Act, Income Tax, and the GST Act, most prominent ones. We keep on complying with those, but actual intention of IBC is that an IP has to take care of compliances of all the laws applicable to a CD. So while you enter into an organization, I to request, if you, while giving consent itself, you should have a fair idea of what laws are applicable to this company. How many factories does it have if it is into manufacturing? How many business outlets does it have if it is into retail? How many service centers is it having if it is a service oriented company? If it is an IT company, which laws are applicable on them? What all guarantees have been given by the promoters, etc. So basic idea of not only about the kind of creditors, kind of bankers they have, that is the only thing we check normally before entering into an assignment. One should take care of the laws applicable to the company also, because IP is expected to take care of the compliances of all the laws applicable to a particular business or a company or the entity for which the resolution process is going on. Other laws are Prevention of Corruption Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Recovery of Debts and Bankruptcy Act, Arbitration and Conciliation, SARFAESI, MSME, RERA, Securities Contract Act, where and whether these are applicable on the transactions of the company, one should be taking note of that. The SEBI regulations, if at all they are applicable, then the substantial acquisition and takeover, listing obligation, very important, issue of capital, delisting, etc. Fair idea of these regulations we all have, but I request if you enter into an assignment of a listed company, you must go through all these regulations once so that you have a detailed idea on where the company is lacking and where you need to take up in the CRP period. General awareness, as we have discussed, that finance and accounts related laws related to the corporate finance, the financial analysis, liquidity management, tax planning, GST, we generally take care. But what we don't take care is right to the constitutional remedies. These might come handy to ourselves. Right of workmen under labor laws, this is very, very important. We have seen through past few judgments, we have come heavily in favor of the workmen and employees. Basic principles of economics, financial markets, basic concepts of valuation, forensic audit. You are aware that these areas, these theories, these academic subjects do touch upon the working of an IP or a liquidator. Therefore, an idea into these subjects will help him taking correct decisions in the best interest of the CD. So now we'll go through the procedural compliances under CIRP, and I will take up in detail the requirements from an IP under a CIRP. Thereafter, liquidation, voluntary liquidation, PPIRP, all of them are there. But let us go through the forms which have been introduced mostly in 2019, and by now it's been more than 3 years. We are all aware about the forms, but still we forget to file, still we give penalties. I suggest that you keep a person with you in your team who is constantly looking at the events and who is I'm sure all of us, all the IPs make a checklist in the beginning of the assignment itself. They put the due dates and the actual dates in front of that. But in addition to that, I suggest that you make in the same Excel file, you make separate sheets for the IPA based compliances, the IBBR regulation, the CRP regulations based, the IP regulations based. So all these once enumerated over there, it will be very easy to find just checkbox the compliances and their status, and there will be a fair chance that you don't miss upon any important compliance thereof. There are many modules also available for the compliances. If you wish, if you have don't have the infrastructure to do it manually, you should definitely go to the automated process. But I personally feel that while reading the regulations, while making the checklist yourself, and then having a review of the checklist on every morning during your assignment is going on, will help you save money as well as harassment later on. So since I have not shifted to the automated processes, doesn't mean that I'm not encouraging you to. So it is purely your choice, but a checklist has to be there, timelines have to be there, immediately on the day one of the admission, that is the commencement of any process. So we are going through the commencement of CIRP. Some things have to be there prior to the commencement. First of all is the AFA. I'm sure all of us have the AFA. Those IPs who don't have AFA are cannot accept or undertake an assignment unless they hold it, and which is valid on the date of such acceptance or commencement of the assignment, as the case may be. So it is important that on the date of acceptance, that is on the date of giving consent for that assignment also, you should have a valid AFA. And those who don't have the AFA are only debarred to take assignments in their own name to act as IP, but they can definitely work, they can practice under the IP profession, and there are a whole lot of activity, a whole lot of services that they can provide and earn under the IBC profession itself. They can be insolvency practitioners, but they cannot be the insolvency professionals. So we will go through them also at the end of my presentation. Second is the Form AA, that is a written consent to act as IRP RP liquidator. If anyone is aware, the Form AA, the written consent to act as liquidator, when has this been introduced? Because I remember giving Form AA, copying the CRP regulations wala form, and then writing, deleting the to act as IRP and writing as liquidator over there. This has come quite recently. No idea. Nobody has given the consent to act as liquidator. Because normally what happens is RP to liquidator is an automated process. So you seldom need to give the consent to act as liquidator. All right. So this has been added with effect from September 2022 only. And prior to that, हम वही करते थे, इधर का copy paste करके उधर बना देते थे. So now we have different forms.
Can you raise one query over here? This
Yeah.
assignment includes the I mean representing as an AR also?
Representing as an AR, the form is different. We'll go through that. I think that is Form AB.
No,
I'll
I'm
come on
not
the
talking
next
about
slide.
form actually. I'm talking
Sorry.
about some assignment. AFA is required for representing any FC before the COC or whatever in as a AR of any financial creditor or something like that.
Yes, AFA is required for that also. Okay. Submission of Form IP1, जो कई लोग भूल जाते हैं, as per IBBI circular dated August 2019, IP1 is to be filed on the online portal of IBBI using your login credentials within 3 days of giving consent to act as IRP or RP or liquidator. IP1 has some peculiarities which I'm sure all of you must be aware, but let me tell you from the perspective of law that before starting to fill the form, rather before taking before giving acceptance, before giving consent, or before saying yes to any assignment, one must have a list of promoters in front of him. One must have the clear idea of the industry in which the company is working. So the form is filled with ease. Otherwise, you start looking for the details thereafter, and then the form gets delayed. The commencement of CRP. CRP is deemed to have commenced from the date where an application under 7, 9 or 10 is admitted. We are all aware that this is called insolvency commencement date. On the commencement date, the AA shall by order declare moratorium prohibiting all of the following, which I'm sure all of you are aware, but I request you to go through the points once again, not from the order where your appointment has been made, but from the code itself, so that you are clearly aware of each and every word written under section 14, which is the strongest section in support of the CD. It starts from the day 1, and thereafter, even if there is some post-dated check or a regular auto debit etc. implied on the bank accounts of the CD, those all will have to be negated or reversed. So you should be very, very careful while knowing the implications of section 14. Regulation 6, sub-regulation 1 of CRP regulations talks about the public announcement that has to be made not later than 3 days of the appointment of IRP. sorry. And the assignment needs to be added at the online portal of IBBI along with a copy of admission order. Post approval of the same from the admin, the public announcement needs to be uploaded. So, has anyone faced any error or blockage at the first step? Your approval from IBBI has not come and you are not able to upload the public announcement over there because the admission of the assignment is rejected. It is not approved. Okay, let me tell you one case where this was not approved. And what was the reason? The name of the CD was not written correctly. You know, it sounds so easy to, it's such a small, silly mistake. But it has so happened that there was a rejection from IBBI because there was, it said no company is there with this name. So the dots, the caps, the spacing, everything has to be correct. The CD's name has to be correctly put in there. Post approval, the PA is to be uploaded. In the PA, choice of 3 IPs shall be mentioned wherever there is a class of creditors as per the regulation 4A to choose one authorized representative. IRP has to ensure to obtain consent from all the 3 IPs identified for authorized representatives in Form AB. 6A of the regulation says the IRP shall send a communication along with a copy of public announcement made under regulation 6 to all the creditors as per the last available books of accounts of the CD through post or electronic means wherever the information for communication is available. Provided that where it is not possible to send a communication to creditors, the PA made under regulation 6 shall be deemed to be communicated to such creditors, to all creditors in fact. Submission of form CRP 1 under regulation 40B1 of CRP regulations and IBBI circular dated so and so. The IRP within 7 days of making public announcement is required to submit form CRP 1 on the online portal of IBBI using login credentials. The language and place to publish the public announcement. It shall be published in one English and one regional language newspaper with wide circulation at the location of the registered office and principal office, if any, of the CD, and any other location where, in the opinion of the IRP, the CD conducts material business operations. Secondly, on the website of the CD, and thirdly, on the website, if any, designated by the board for this purpose. Some IPs do publish this public announcement on their own websites also, and let me tell you that is a very good practice so that whosoever is visiting that website on a regular basis to obtain certain information can get the PA handy over there and can use that to circulate to the selected group wherever probable creditors or the probable RAs are located. We all have those groups these days. So one can disseminate the information at a larger scale by putting it up on our own website also. Under section claims received within 14 days of public announcement. Under section 15(1)(c) of the code, read with regulation 6(2)(c) and 12 subregulation 1 of CRP regulations, the creditors have to submit their claims to the IRP within 14 days of making public announcement. We are all aware about this. Under regulation 13, verification of the claims received under regulation 12(1), the IRP must verify the claims under the said regulation within 7 days of the receipt of the claims, wherein the IRP shall maintain the list of creditors, which is an ever-changing list containing names of creditors along with the amounts claimed by them, the amounts of their claims admitted, security interest if any, and updated. The list of creditors will be available for inspection and displayed on the website if any of the CD. Further, to be filed on the electronic platform of the board, that is IBBI, through member login, and to be filed with the AA and presented at the first meeting of the committee. After the verification of the claim, the application for appointment of AR as per 21(6)(a)(b) and regulation 16(a) of CRP regulations. Whenever there is a class of creditors The application for appointment of AR is to be made within 2 days of verification of claims received. That will take us to T plus 23. The regulation 17.1 says a report certifying constitution of COC. The IRP within 2 days of verification of claims received under 12.1 is required to file a report certifying the constitution of committee of creditors as well as the list of creditors to AA. Relationship disclosure. The IRP is to disclose his or her relationship with the financial creditors within 3 days of his appointment. This is very important and we normally miss it because the IPA disclosures we tend to miss. So relationship disclosure, cost disclosure, time related disclosures, event related disclosures are all there on the IPA websites also, and all the three websites, all the three IPAs have a little different format of asking for the information, but you must file the online information. That that is not a physical form, that is not a form to be downloaded or something. It has to be done in the similar fashion as the CRP1 etc. are being filed. Your portal has to be updated every day. One must visit those websites and log in into your respective assignment to see whether any assignment is over, whether any updation is overdue or it is due. The constitution of committee of creditors to the registered IPA via online portal using login credentials has to be done within 3 days of constitution of COC. Relationship disclosure of IRP with CD as per the RBI circular. So this was the relationship disclosure with the financial creditor and this is with the CD. The IRP is to disclose his or her relationship with the CD within 3 days of his appointment to the registered IPA at online portal of IPA using his login credentials. The IRP has to disclose the relationship with other professionals within 3 days of his appointment or appointment of such other professionals whenever that happens during the course of the assignment or CIRP. The IRP has to disclose other professionals' relationship with other stakeholders. For example, a professional entity engaged or a professional who is engaged has a relationship with FC, then that also needs to be disclosed at the IPA using login credentials. Section 22 subsection 1 of the code and regulation 19.2 of the CRP regulations talk about the convening of the first meeting of COC. The IRP need to conduct the first meeting of COC and wherein the appointment of RP is to be done within 7 days of filing of the report certifying COC, but with 5 days notice only. After the approval of COC, the notice period can be reduced to 24 hours but not below 48 hours in case of the ARs because they have to carry on the secondary process also for the subsequent meetings. So first meeting notice has to be 5 days and thereafter the notice period can be reduced. Regulation 40B subregulation 1A, which has been introduced once carrying all the forms and thereafter 7 and 8 forms were added to it later. If appointment of RP is not made by T plus 30th day, the IRP or the resolution professional, as the case may be, shall file form CRP 7 within 3 days of the said date and continue to file form CRP 7 every 30 days until the said activity remains incomplete and continue to file form CRP 7 every 30 days until it remains incompleted. Sorry, this is repeated. So till such time that event is not completed, every 30 days, if on 30th day the activity is still uncompleted, the form CRP 7 will again have to be filed. If RP is not appointed by the 40th day of commencement, IRP performs the functions of RP till the RP is appointed. Regulation 27 talks about the appointment of registered valuers. The appointment of registered valuers is to be made within 7 days of appointment of RP, but not later than 47th day of commencement of CRP. Within 3 days of appointment of valuers, the IRP or RP has to disclose his or her relationship with the valuers. This applies to all the professionals being appointed, even to the security agency also. Some of us make a mistake that it is written relationship with the valuers, relationship with the professionals appointed during the process, but I insist that a relationship disclosure of any entity has to be disclosed within 3 days of appointment thereof. The IRP is to disclose registered valuer's relationship with all the stakeholders. So the relationship disclosure, his own relationship disclosure with the valuer, as well as the valuer's relationship with the other stakeholders also. Regulation 34A, and in fact it is not clearly written over here, but the disclosure relationship has to be there for relationship between the stakeholders and the IPE of which he is a member, director or partner. For those IPs who are belonging to an IPE, the disclosure relationship has tremendous there is a tremendous responsibility on them to give this disclosure, because sometimes we miss, and in indirect words there many times it has been highlighted the entity with which the partners of the entity with which the IP is related. So it is advisable to give the disclosure initially itself, that the IPE does not have any relationship with the FC, the IP, the partners of the IPE have not handled any case with these, or any COC member has direct or pecuniary relationship with one of the partners, maybe a valuer somewhere is your partner and that valuer has been engaged by. So those disclosures are a must, and thereafter only, that once you carry out that exercise, then only you will be able to check whether you are independent to that CD or not. So those relationship checks are very important at the beginning of the assignment itself, and even during the assignment I request to send proper communication to all your partners and other directors, informing them about the commencement of a CRP or a liquidation process wherein you have been appointed as the RP or a liquidator, so that they are aware and they give proper disclosures at the right time, and then you are able to give the disclosures to the IPA on the right time. And if you are connected somewhere, then that correction has to be made either at that end, at the end of that professional or your position. Regulation 34A of the CRP regulations, it talks about the cost disclosure. An IP shall disclose the fees payable to him, IP entity, and the professionals engaged by him to the IPA within 7 days of demitting the office as IRP. That has to be submitted at the online portal of IPA using your login credentials. Regulation 40B1 again, and IBPI circular, submission of form CRP2 within 7 days of replacement of IRP is to be submitted at online portal of IBPI using login credentials. This includes details of authorized representatives selected by IRP for a class of creditors, taking over management of the CD. So all these events are covered under form CRP2. I'm sure you are aware, but let us go through them once so that if you are missing something, it is immediately recalled by way of today's workshop. So receipt and verification of claims, the due dates, the actual dates, constitution of COC, first meeting of COC, confirmation or replacement of IRP, applications seeking cooperation of management, expenses incurred on or by the IRP, relationship of IRP with CD, financial creditors and professionals, support services sought from IPE, non-compliances with the provisions of the code and other laws applicable to the CD, etc. So this is basically related to all those jobs which are to be done by 47th day. Section 12A and regulation 30A, very important and sometimes confusing. If an application is filed for withdrawal under section 12A of the code before the constitution of COC, the IRP is duty bound to place it directly before the AA for its approval. Here the approval by COC is irrelevant, invalid, because COC has not yet been constituted only. So this is a simple interpretation of section 12A that that makes him duty bound to place it before the AA for approval. At any stage where COC is not yet constituted, a party can approach NCLT directly, which tribunal may, in exercise of its inherent powers under Rule 11 of NCLT Rules 2016, allow or disallow an application for withdrawal or settlement. This will be decided after hearing all the parties concerned and considering all relevant factors on the facts of each case. Where the COC is constituted, the IRP or RP shall place the proposal before the COC first, and a majority vote of 90% is required for the approval. If the proposal crosses the first hurdle of majority vote, it is then presented to the adjudicating authority, where it is at the discretion of the AA to allow or dismiss such applications. Let me ask you a simple question. This is out of curiosity only. Many people must be having this question in mind. Why a vote of 90% is required for approval of settlement or withdrawal of CRP, and why only 66% is required for resolution plan? Any idea, any logic? Are we awake? No videos on. Let me see. No videos, absolutely. Let me request to switch on the videos once. Okay, we have people. Okay. Okay, thank you. You know, it is so difficult to talk to the names on the screen. So my question was, why is there a threshold of such a difficult 90% approval for a withdrawal and only 66% approval for the resolution plan? Anyone, a common one, an old one.
Because this will end the CIP process. That's why we need higher percentage of voting.
Anyone else?
Withdrawal application.
But resolution is equally important, whether that is logical, whether that is commercially viable, feasible or not. Only 66% members will agree and the plan will be implemented. Any other answers? You are right, but I need more points. 3 marks question.
Ma'am, earlier it was 75%. Now they have reduced to 66.
Yeah.
Yeah, the intent was the same actually to get the more resolution.
Yes, that is the actual intent. So the intent is to have resolutions, and there the involvement of all the people, like 90% of COC would mean what? Possibly 95% of the people present on the COC, of the members present, right? So 90% of voting power would require most of them to agree. So when it was started with a purpose and all the minds have been applied to admission of CRP, thereafter halting the process in between just for the sake of one settlement plan which may or may not get implemented properly. So for that, that being an important decision, the entire COC, nearly 90% of the COC has to agree to that decision. And for approving a resolution plan which is made for the upliftment, for the revival of the company, the 66% is also acceptable, because ultimate goal is to bring a resolution and revive the company. And the videos are not on. We don't have a rule that without video attendance will not be given. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. (12A) is that visible? The slide is visible. Withdrawal of the CRP.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
All
visible.
right. All right. Okay. So next is Regulation 30A, Subregulation 1. An application for withdrawal under Section 12A shall be submitted to the IRP or the RP, as the case may be, in Form FA of the schedule before issue of invitation of expression of interest under Regulation 36A. Now, if such a settlement proposal is given after the issue of EOI, that is an application for withdrawal under 30A can also be made after the public invitation for claims was issued. The expression shall is to be read as may, and consequently the provision was held only to be directory. So an application for withdrawal may also be allowed in exceptional cases even after the issue of invitation for expression of interest under regulation 36A of the CIRP regulations. An application filed under 7, 9 or 10 can very well be withdrawn even after the liquidation process has commenced. It is important that the pivot of the code is to maximize the assets of the value of the assets of the CD in order to save it from the liquidation. So since you must have noticed that liquidation does not form part of a preamble of the code, it does not mean that liquidation is bad or wrong. It may be the best way possible for a company whose products may not be suitable now, or there is no demand, or the business actually is not worth of making profit, etc. So there are certain business considerations wherein the business to close the business may be the wiser decision than to continue. But even then, the code, the ultimate purpose of the code is to maximize the value of the assets and to revive the CD. Therefore, this has been allowed, the withdrawal of CRP has been allowed in 1 or 2 cases even after the liquidation was commenced. Now, form CRP 6, premature closure, even within 7 days of the order of AA, any appeal or settlement or withdrawal, etc., whenever the order comes up, within 7 days of the order, form CRP 6 has to be submitted at the online portal of IBBI using login credentials. It is event specific, and the events are filing of application in respect of preferential transaction, undervalued transaction, fraudulent or extortionate, raising interim finance, insolvency resolution process of guarantors, extension of time period of CRP and exclusion of time, premature closure, request for liquidation before completion of CRP, and non-implementation of resolution plan as approved by AA. In these events, CRP 6 has to be filed. What does regulation 36A says? Publish form G and invite expression of interest. It should be published in 2 newspapers, again English and regional language, within 60 days of commencement of CRP process, and to be uploaded on the website of CD, on the website of IBBI also. Any modification in the invitation for expression shall not be made more than once. Regulation 35A, RP has to form an opinion on preferential and other transactions within 75 days of insolvency commencement date, and here the RPs do not apply their full minds. Therefore, it is advisable that they appoint an auditor in this regard. If RP has prima facie opinion on the PUFE transactions, if something is missing, something is doubtful on the face of the financials that he has received, then he must appoint the auditor at right time, so that the determination of opinion, thereafter the determination of the amounts and filing of application, etc., is done within due timelines of 135 days or so. Provisional list of resolution applicants, at least 15 days from the issue of EOI for submission of expression of interest, the applicants shall submit EOI with non-disclosure undertakings. Then regulation 36A also talks about issuance of provisional list, which has to be done within 10 days from the last date of receipt of EOI. You know, it is very interesting that we give 15, if at least 15 days is written, we give 15 days. If it is written within 10 days, and then we take full 10 days. Timeline can be utilized and reduced by, if we have a minimum timeline criteria, for example 15 days, you can give 10 days also. No, here it is at least 15 days. It has to be 15 days. Where it is, it has to be done within 10 days, and it is on your part. The provisional list can be issued within 7 days or 5 days also. Resolution applicants can submit their objections with respect to provisional list within 5 days from the date of provisional list. So for resolution applicants, the timeline cannot be reduced. Regulation 36(1) for submission of IM to the COC. Again, the timeline has to be adhered to. The the RP must submit IM to the committee of creditor on or before 95th day. I think this timeline has got changed. It is 54th day now. Am I correct? The IM has to be submitted to the COC on T plus 54th day.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So this needs to be corrected. Regulation 40B1A says if IM is not issued within 95, that is 54 days, then CRP 7, that is an event-based form, has to be filed with IBBI using your login credentials. And for if the incompletion continues for further days, for the 30 days, then again the form needs to be filed at every 30 days. Regulation 40B1 and the IBBI circular. Submission of Form CRP 3 is required to be filed by RP within 7 days of issuance of IM, and that is to be submitted at the online portal of IBBI using login credentials. Again, the timeline is 54 plus 7 days, so 102 nahi hai yahan pe. From appointment of RP till the issue of IM, this period of CRP 3 is till the issue of IM. This includes details of RP, details of registered valuers, handing over of records of CD by IRP to RP, taking over management of the CD, applications seeking cooperation of management, if any, details in IM, non-compliances with the provisions of code and other laws applicable to the CD, etc. So all these events are covered under CRP 3. Final list of PRAs and request for resolution plan. The resolution professionals shall issue final list of resolution applicants within 10 days of the receipt of objections, if any, under regulation 36A. The RP shall issue RFRP, evaluation matrix and IM to every prospective resolution applicant within 5 days of the issue of provisional list. Evaluation matrix shall be approved by the COC. RFRP, in case it is not issued within 105 days from the date of public announcement, the RP shall file form CRP 7 within 3 days of the said date and continue to file the form until the said activity remains incomplete, and that has to be submitted again on IBBI. Due date of compliance of filing these forms is 3 days. Nearly all the forms are to be filed. No. Due days of compliance. I'll need to correct the these days. The date of compliance under regulation, under the CRP regulations. Those days need to be corrected. And the CRP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are all required to be filed within 7 days of the happening of or non-happening of the event. Regulation 40B1 again talks about CRP 4, which is required to be submitted within 7 days of issue of RFRP to COC. That has to be submitted again on the IBBI using login credentials. From issue of IM till the request for resolution plans. In between this, the CRP 4 falls. This includes EOI, RFRP and any modification thereof, evaluation matrix, non-compliance with the provisions of the code and other laws applicable to the CD, if any. Now, very important, avoidance transactions which we file but we forget. The regulation 35A talks about RP to make a determination on PUFE transactions. 36B talks about receipt of resolution plans from the resolution applicants. At least 30 days period from issue of RFRP is to be given to the resolution applicants to submit the plan. 35A also talks about making an application to the AA for relief within 130 days of the commencement. The resolution professional should forward a copy of application to the PRA to enable him to consider the same while submitting the plan. CRP 8 has been added only last year. That is the RP to file CRP 8 intimating details of his opinion and determination under regulation 35A. This form is to be filed by 140th day of ICD. If application for PUFE transactions is filed, then CRP 6 has to be filed. Filing of application in respect of preferential transactions and so within 7 days of occurrence of the event to be submitted on the online portal using login credentials. So you must have seen that regulation 40B1 of CRP regulations talks about all the CRP 1 to 8 forms which are to be filed on the online portal of IBBI using your login credentials and getting into the particular assignment thereof. And the disclosures, relationship disclosure, cost disclosure, and event-based disclosures, they are to be made on your IPA website by logging in and going through the respective assignment. Submission of COC approved resolution plan to AA as soon as the plan is approved. Then along with the compliance certificate in Form H, the RP is required to submit the approved resolution plan to the AA. The approval or rejection of the plan by AA has to be within 180 days, which seldom happens. One has to send a copy of order of the AA approving or rejecting a plan to the participants and to the RA. Intimate each claimant within 15 days of the order of the AA approving the plan. The principal or formulae, as the case may be, for payment of debts under such plan has to be intimated to the creditors. If the CRP is not completed within 180 days, then RP will file application with AA to extend after taking approval of COC. If CRP is not completed by 180th day, then CRP 7 form has to be filed. If it is not completed within 180, then if thereafter every 30 days this form has to be filed. So CRP is most of the times it is filed only for this purpose. This is a most used form and mostly filed by all the RPs. CRP 6 talks about extension of period of CRP and exclusion of time within 7 days of the order to be submitted at online portal. It has these events covered under it: filing of application for PUFE, raising interim finance. I think we have covered this on a previous slide. These are the events for which CRP 6 is to be filed. Now CRP 5 is for the period of issue of RFRP till the completion of CRP. This includes the updated list of claimants, updated COC. So whenever there is a change in the list of creditors, this form has to be filed within 7 days. Updated COC, details of RA, details of plans received, details of approval or rejection of the plan by the COC, application filed with AA for approval, details of plan approved by the AA, initiation of liquidation if applicable, expenses incurred on or by the RP, appointment of professionals and the terms of appointment thereof, relationship of RP with the CD, with the FCs and professionals, support services sought from the IPE, if any, non-compliances with the code or the laws applicable to CD, if any, during this period. The relevant period is issue of RFRP till the completion of CRP. Regulation 34 and clause 25A of first schedule of IP regulations talk about the cost disclosure. An IP shall disclose the fee payable to him, to the IPE, and to professionals engaged by him, to the IPA, within 7 days of demitting the office as RP. This is similar to the disclosures to be made by the IRP. As the case may be, either by way of removal, replacement, conclusion, etc. This is to be again submitted on the IPA using login credentials. Relationship disclosure, event based, this applies to the entire process, duration of the CRP process, and the IRP or RP has to disclose his or her relationship with the other professionals who are appointed during the course of the CRP, respectively, within 3 days of their appointment. So IRP or RP has to disclose this relationship on the IPA using the
Madam, one question.
Yes.
If, for example, RP is interested in any resolution plan, because if RP does not know whom might apply, and if later on, if it comes to know that some interested person is applying in the plan.
Interest, what kind of interest that will be? If there is a pecuniary relationship,
Maybe
then,
blood relation also or pecuniary also.
So that comes under related party, and RP is no more independent.
Okay.
That RA will not be eligible to be an RA.
Okay. So, but madam, it is not like that. RP does not know who may apply or who may not apply.
But once he comes to know, then he has to carry out 29A diligence himself. If you know that the 29A affidavit is taken twice from the RAs, one at the time of EOI and one at the time of plan, and you will place only those plans with COC. Only those RAs who are eligible under 29A. So you have to carry out the entire due diligence of 29A yourself before placing any plan before COC. So that RA will get detected at either at the time of EOI or at the time of giving the plan. That plan cannot be placed to the COC unless either RA or the RP is changed.
But it is not like that. If the RP discloses to the COC and if COC is okay, then, but or the law does not allow.
My understanding is the law does not allow,
Okay, fine.
because RP has to be an independent person, and this is purely a related party coming under one clause or the other of the related party definition, which is very vast, the related party definition of Companies Act. I think my understanding says that. If we have any other understanding, we can talk about that. Nothing from.
Yeah, I think you are right, ma'am, because confidentiality and independence, they are two major issues.
Yes.
I think it will be allowed to.
Yes, the related party definition is so vast, and that applies to RP. He has to carry out the due diligence of 29A. He is not spared from that. That is my understanding. So some documents are to be filed on the MCA, and as per the 17th February 2020 and March 6, 2020 circulars, the facilitation has been given to the IPs and liquidators how to file the forms. You can go through them. I'm sure you must be going through them already. And what are the processes while changing the status of the company from active to inactive or to liquidation, and vice versa. Regulation 39A of CRP regulations, it talks about the retention of records, and this is really important. This is similar, word to word similar, in case of CRP, liquidation, voluntary liquidation, nearly at all places under all processes, the IP has to maintain the records in this manner. The electronic copy of all records, physical and electronic, for a minimum period of 8 years. Can you see the difference? Electronic copy of physical and electronic records. Right, so this would include the scanned copies of all the physical record plus the word files, etc., which are related to the working of the during the process. So whatever files, records you have used during the process, and whatever documents you have got for CD, you have to preserve them for 8 years in electronic form and for 3 years in physical form. Someone has raised hand. You can unmute. Yeah, tell me.
Ma'am, one doubt, madam.
Hanji.
When RP is replaced, actually IRP is replaced by the RP. Now, does the IRP has right to access the emails, madam? Email of the CARP. For CARP purpose, they created an email ID, separate Gmail ID. Now the ex-IRP, can he have access to that, or?
He can have access to those emails for lawful and reasonable consumption of him, but he cannot use that portal thereafter to represent himself as IRP or RP of that organization. He might have to consider or check or get details of some of his working. That is not prohibited under any law, but he cannot represent or act or present himself to be an IRP or RP of that organization anymore. And related to that CRP process, he cannot write emails from that ID. And in case you have a relationship with that person who has demitted his office, you can have a clear word on how you will carry forward this relationship, and that Gmail password, etc., may be changed thereafter. And in case he needs any information, he can come back to you for that, because he will also have to preserve the record, and if he has not kept copies of the records, he might have to come to you for taking copies of those records.
Thank you.
Then they have to hand over the email ID and the password to the RP. Appointment of RP.
ये बर्थडे वाले दिन किया था मैंने तो बोला
The password has to be forwarded to RP by IRP.
Yes, has to be. This is like handing over the data and documents to RP. This
Yes.
is required under the law.
12 साल जॉब करता था
Sir, password is handed over, but still that old IRP, he wants to write the email and also that is where the dispute was.
I don't think
No,
he can write
that is not allowed.
Not
He
allowed.
cannot act as the IRP or RP
But
anymore.
any rule is there, madam, that ex-IRP is asking, please share the guideline or rule reference, circular reference and all.
He is not related to that office anymore. That office has been taken over by some other person. So he is not officially related to that ID anymore. If you are giving access to him, there is on certain trust that you are just giving it for his use and not representing to the outside world, to the stakeholders, representing that he is still related to this. Best is to not share the password, etc., because it may be misused.
इनको बोल देते हैं ना ये भी तो है ये जो जा रहे हैं उधर वो
Okay, so a quick recap on the forms. I'm sure we are all aware about these forms which are there under CRP regulations. Therefore, I have not taken up their screenshots or the details. The Form A is used for public announcement. Form AA is used for written consent to act as RP. AB is for written consent to act as authorized representative. Form B is the proof of claim by OCs, except workmen and employees. C is for submission of claim by FCs. CA is the submission of claim by FCs in a class. D is the proof of claim by a workman or an employee. E is the proof of claim submitted by authorized representative of workman and employee. Form F is a proof of claim by other creditors who are neither financial creditors or operational creditors and who are not covered under above categories. FA is for withdrawal of the CRP process. G is for invitation of EOI. For this has been added to the name of the firm itself, for so and so company operating in so and so industry at such and such location. Form H is the compliance certificate. These were all given under Schedule 1, and Schedule 2 only talks about the minimum fixed fee and performance linked incentive fee. That has been newly introduced, Regulation 34B. Shall we take a break of 10 minutes here?
Yes, ma'am, we can take.
Yeah, okay. So we join back at 3:45.
45. Okay, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. So we start.
Sure, ma'am, we can start.
It is very interesting to see the chat box. People keep asking what happened to the audio. I'm not able to hear. So, okay. And one thing should also be told, ma'am. One thing should be told to the participants that they should not keep writing their registration number in the chat box for attendance, because attendance is anyways based upon their login and attendance throughout.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So it blocks the chat box, and sometimes important questions are get unnoticed. वैसे I तो always insist कि you talk, you interrupt the speaker, at least me, in between, and then we can talk and conclude the subject there then and there, so that there's no need to scroll through the chat box. So again, shall we wait for people, or this much video I'll be getting?
We can begin with the session.
Hanji. People don't keep their videos on. I don't know why. Okay, so the general compliances, we are starting from where we left. I hope it is visible and I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Thank you so much. So one is the regulation 34B, which has been recently introduced. I know people have mixed feelings for this regulation, but it is there for us. Take it or leave it. The fees to be paid to IRP or RP, and this shall be decided by the committee in accordance with this regulation, which shall not be less than this minimum fee criteria referred in Schedule 2. A higher fees may be decided keeping into consideration the market factors, and after the expiry of the period, the fee shall be decided by the COC as the case may be. Period for minimum fixed fee from appointment as IRP or RP till the time of submission of application for approval of the plan, or to liquidate the CD, or for withdrawal under section 12A, or the order for closure of CRP, whichever is earlier. The fee may be paid from the funds available with the CD, contributed by the applicant or the members of the committee, or raised by way of interim finance, and shall be included in the CRP cost. I'm sure all of us have read this. For the resolution plan approved by the COC on or after 1st October 2022, the committee may decide in its discretion to pay performance-linked incentive fee not exceeding 5 CR in total, in accordance with clause 3 and clause 4 of schedule 2, or may extend any other performance-linked incentive structure as it deems necessary. The performance-linked structure says that it may be paid to the RP at the rate of 1% of the amount by which the realizable value is higher than the liquidation value after approval of the plan by AA on commencement of payment to creditors by the RA. Here, realizable value means the amount payable to creditors in the plan approved under section 31. So realizable value also has its name, a total plan value we normally call it. So the law has given a name, realizable value, to this now. Something else on membership fees and professional fees, that is, an IP has to pay to the board a fee of 25,000 every 5 years after the year in which the certificate is granted, and such fee shall be paid on or before 30th April of the year it falls due every 5 years. He has to pay to the board a fee calculated at the rate of 1% of the professional fee earned for the services rendered by him in an insolvency as an IP in the preceding financial year. Provided further that where the IP is an IPE, it shall pay to the board a fee calculated at the rate of 1% of the professional fee earned for the services rendered as IP in the preceding financial year on or before 30th of April every year, along with a statement in Form G of Schedule 2, Form E along with fee at online portal of IBBI on or before 30th April every year. So this was introduced only last year through online portal of IBBI to be submitted with IBBI or IPA. Bylaw 11 of bylaws of ICSI IIP, there is an annual membership fee The agency may require the professional members to pay a fixed sum of money as its annual membership fee up to 30th June for every year through online portal of ICSI IRP that is to be submitted with IBI or IPA. Regulatory fees Form EA that has been newly introduced. I'm sure you know about it. This was introduced in September and was effective from 1st October. That means this was the first such fee has gone in the month of January 2023. A regulatory fee calculated at the rate of 1% of the cost being booked in insolvency resolution process costs in respect of hiring any professional or other services by an IRP or RP as the case may be for assistance in a CRP process. Let us go back to which services are covered here. Hiring any professional or other services for assistance in CRP process. Can anybody give examples of other services than the professional here? Professionals, we are aware, the auditor, the transaction auditor, the valuer. What are the other services for assistance in a CRP process? It shall be payable to the board, Form EA along with Form EA at online portal of IBI within a period of 30 days after the end of each quarter. All of us must have paid this for December quarter. Okay, let me tell you. The other services are the services of security agency, or some you may hire non-professionals for certain tasks to be done during the CRP process. Professionals will include your e-auction or your not auction. Liquidation is not covered here. It is only about CRP regulations. The e-voting service providers, the VDR service providers, they are all covered under the professional fees, and other services are all other people you have hired, whether they are providing you professional skilled services or unskilled services based on any academic education base of theirs or not, but you have paid to them for certain services and they are outside.
I hope there is some network issue on ma'am's side.
There was some connection problem at my end.
Yes, ma'am. There was some problem.
Yeah. Have you seen this slide? This I was explaining.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right. So this is in continuation of that. It says a fee calculated at the rate of 0.25% of the realizable value to creditors under the plan which has been approved under section 31 shall be payable to the board where such realizable value is more than the liquidation value, provided that this sub-regulation shall be applicable where plan is approved on or after 1st October. So this is the most recent amendment which was brought up in September 2022. The first schedule of Code of Conduct of IP regulations, the clause 8A says, let me go back to the person who raised the issue of RP and RA. That relationship definitely will have to be checked from the perspective of related party definition, as I told you. And I also request you to just go through the Code of Conduct in detail, because that carries the responsibilities of the IP working in various capacities under IBC. And from there it will be derived that you cannot be a related person with the others, with the stakeholders during an assignment, either under CRP or liquidation. Clause 8A says an IP shall disclose to IPA whether he was an employee of or has been on the panel of any FC of the CD. So which is a very common case. He may or may not be the employee, but he may be on the panel of an FC. So this disclosure has to be made to the IPA. The IP shall disclose above mentioned details to the COC also on constitution of COC or on IP becoming aware subsequently to ICSI IRP details at via email, this email ID, and to be submitted with IBPI or IPA. So these details are to be disclosed. Bylaw 16 of ICSI bylaws, it talks about the half yearly return, and similarly the bylaws of ICAI and ICMI IIPs also have their respective bylaws. One must go through them and keep a checklist ready with them under one file itself, as I told you, and that file has to be updated from time to time, because such requirements are normally applicable on ongoing CRP, ongoing assignments also. So one has to take care of updations made during the course of an assignment also. Half yearly return has to be filed. A professional member shall submit information including records of ongoing and concluding engagements as an IP at least twice a year. It needs to be submitted irrespective of the fact that the IP was handling an assignment or not. Within 15 days of the end of half year, through online portal framed for this purpose with the same login credentials provided to an IP as a member. This is for submission at ICSI IIP, and you have to check your own IPA's website for further details. Self-declaration, that is the monitoring policy of ICSI IRP, annual self-declaration form. This is to submit the details of compliance of circulars issued by IBPI from time to time. A professional member shall submit annual self-declaration form within 15 days from the end of 31st March every year. Within 15 days, it has to be submitted with IBPI or IPA. The compliance is for ICSI IIP, but you must check the monitoring policy of other IPAs. Similar clauses must be there in the other policies as well. Maintenance of records of all assignments undertaken by him under the code for at least 3 years from the commencement completion of such assignment is a requirement of IP regulations. Also, in addition to the CRP, liquidation, voluntary liquidation, respectively, those assignments also talk, those regulations also talk in details about the preservation of records. Clause 3A of the first schedule of Code of Conduct of the IP regulations, an IP must disclose the details of any conflict of interest to the stakeholders whenever he comes across such conflict of interest during an assignment. An IP shall disclose the existence of any pecuniary or personal relationship with any stakeholder entitled to distribution under Section 53 or 178 of the Code, and the concerned CD corporate person or debtor as soon as he becomes aware of it, by making a declaration of the same to the applicant, COC, and the person proposing appointment as applicable. An insolvency professional must not engage in an employment when he holds a valid AFA or when he is undertaking an assignment. When an IP has conducted a CRP, he and his relatives shall not accept any employment or render professional service other than the services under the code to a creditor having more than 10% voting power, the successful resolution applicant, the CD, or any of their related parties until a period of 1 year has elapsed from the date of his cessation from such process. This also takes care of that question. But They cannot be related concurrently in a scheme, in a process going on. An IP shall not engage or appoint any of his relatives or related parties for or in connection with any work related to any of his assignment. An IP shall not provide any service for or in connection with any assignment which is being undertaken by any of his relatives or related parties. An IP shall not accept or share any fees or charges from any professional and or the support service provider who are appointed under the processes. Earlier, these clauses were not there. The sharing of fees, appointment of related parties, and this one, the penalty, etc., interest penalty, etc., not forming part of the CRP cost. So these have been included by looking at the conduct of the IPs, and it is not so. It is so unfortunate that regulations had to be drawn by the IBBI, talking about such simple, ethical issues, which were earlier assumed that a professional shall adhere to. IP shall not outsource his responsibilities, and IP shall not include any amount towards any loss, penalty, etc. in the CRP cost or liquidation cost, which is incurred on account of non-compliance of any provision of laws applicable on the corporate person while conducting the CRP process or fast track process or liquidation or voluntary liquidation process under the code. Not only the non-compliance of IP himself, but the non-compliance of any laws applicable on the CD. An IP shall, while undertaking assignment or conducting processes, exercise reasonable care and diligence and take all necessary steps to ensure that the corporate person complies with the applicable laws at all times. IP to use registration number and registered address in all his communication when communication is made with the stakeholders in a particular assignment. Confidentiality of information relating to processes under the IBC. The IRP or RP is directed that he shall, in every notice of meeting and in any communication addressed to the FCs, other than the creditors under 21(6)(a)(b), that is the class of creditors, require that they must be represented in the COC or in any meeting of the COC by such persons who are competent and are authorized to take decision on the spot, and without deferring decisions for want of any internal approval from the FCs. But this never happens. Practically, we are all waiting for the decision to be taken. We are opening the e-voting lines for them. We are waiting. We are extending the voting period by them and just delaying the process ourselves. We have got this right to direct, to advise, to require the COC members that they must send the persons who are authorized to take decisions on the spot. Still, it doesn't happen normally. With effect from 1st February 2019, no IP shall appoint a person other than a registered valuer to conduct any valuation under the code. This is such an old circular. Even thereafter, many violations of this clause have been made by the IPs. I don't understand why. This is a simple requirement one has to keep in mind. Appointment of any person other than a registered valuer to conduct any valuation is illegal and amounts to violation of the such and such circular. Payment to any person other than a registered valuer shall not form part of the CRP cost or liquidation cost. IBBI guidelines issued on 6th August 2019 talk about an IP who shall undertake a minimum of 10 credit hours of CPE each calendar year and minimum of 60 credit hours of CPE in each rolling block of 3 calendar years, provided that an IP is not required to undertake any CPE in the calendar year in which he is registered. These shall come into force on such and such date. Liquidation process regulations and IP regulations are also applicable here. The provisions in relation to liquidation process are contained in part 2, chapter 3 of the code. Liquidation is a process through which a corporator reaches a final death of the company. It is opted by the COC when a company is not resolved via operation of CRP. It is pertinent to mention here that the object of the code is achieved by maximizing the value of assets, and liquidator who is appointed in the process of liquidation can achieve that by exercising the beneficial liquidation, that is the selling of assets as a going concern. Even if it is not a going concern, the liquidator can take steps for maximizing the value of the assets by proper promotion and marketing of the assets under distress, and not to sell them, try not to sell them at such distressed values, scrap values, and sell the assets if not as a going concern, then maybe the business can be sold as a going concern. If not, then the slump sale can be tried upon, because in those sales and if not going through the parcel sale and in pieces, if the assets are sold together, then as a whole lot, then the values are definitely maximized, and the bidders, the eligibility criteria is not there normally. I've gone through n number of process documents, the auction process documents, and never found any eligibility criteria making the bidder, the prospective bidder, a qualified bidder. There should be a qualification, a minimum qualification of at least some net worth or same business line or something for the buyers under liquidation. Liquidation is auction and sale, etc., are carried out in such a wasteful manner that I don't think any liquidator thinks about the maximization of value under liquidation, which can be achieved even if the business is not sold as a going concern. When a resolution plan, which is required under 30 section 6, is not received, situations when the order for liquidation is passed. So if the plan is not received, or if the AA rejects the plan, or if the decision of COC, by the decision of COC, the plan is not approved by 66%, or there is a contravention of the approved resolution plan. So liquidation is ordered in such states. After the AA passes an order for liquidation under section 33, the RP directly becomes the liquidator unless he is replaced by the AA, or COC files an application for replacement of RP, replacement of another person as liquidator. Therefore, the liquidator is envisaged into the code to ensure liquidation with adequate and due compliance of law in a time-bound manner for maximization of value of assets. The liquidator in the IBC is responsible for compliance with the applicable laws, regulations, and rules, regulations, and laws. Thus, he can be referred to as compliance officer for the purpose of liquidation. He is also having the similar responsibilities to comply with all the laws applicable on the CD, except those which have specifically been exempted under liquidation. Compliances under IBC by the liquidator include some compliances to be some documents, some reports, files, etc., to be forms to be submitted with IBBI or IPA. Some of them are procedural and some of them are general. One important aspect here is the list of stakeholders. If anybody has an idea on how the list of stakeholders and list of creditors, how the mechanism works in both of them, and what is the basic difference amongst these two. I ask such questions just to see who is awake.
You mean to say the creditors in CIRP and stakes in liquidation?
Yes. Difference in the law.
Prima facie, when the financial creditor is there is a COC on the advice of which the IP is working, RP or IRP is working, basically. In case of liquidator, stakeholders are just for consultation. Advice of the stakeholders are binding on the liquidator, basically.
So you have correctly answered a question which I have not asked. The question was the difference in how the law sees and how an IP needs to deal with the list of creditors and list of stakeholders, not the COC and the stakeholders consultation committee.
No, how to deal? What do you mean to say deal?
What all needs to be taken care of? Is the law similar for both of them? The IP under the RP under the CRP has to take care of the list of creditors and has to update it and maintain the updated list on such and such portal, etc. from time to time. And the liquidator has to finalize the list of stakeholders and then update it from time to time.
No, it's not the case in the case of stakeholder, basically.
Okay. Any other view?
I think stakeholders will involve all, that is shareholder, equity shareholders, preference shareholders and all.
Huh. Yes, that is also a difference. That is a basic difference in composition of them. My main question relates to what all needs to be taken care of while maintaining and updating the list of creditors under CIRP and list of stakeholders under liquidation. Are the manners similar, or what is a basic difference amongst them? Once the list is made, why is there a need to update that from time to time?
List of stakeholders can be updated only through the adjudicating authority.
Yes, one of the very important differences that we normally miss, and this has to be updated from time to time in the similar manner as the list of creditors is updated. But in CIRP, the list of creditors, once maintained and updated by the RP, need not to be communicated to AA or IBBI from time to time, right? IBBI has now with the introduction of certain forms has required him to update when there is an updation in the list of creditors, but it does not go to AA. But in liquidation, every updation in the list of stakeholders has to be through with the approval of AA, right? So that is one basic difference which is not to be taken lightly. In the liquidation process, it is not that once the list of stakeholders is made and thereafter there shall not be any changes. One more important aspect under the list of stakeholders under liquidation, that is the unpaid CIRP cost also forms part of this. They are not the stakeholders, but that forms prominent part of the liquidation costs. So the list of creditors is different from list of stakeholders under the liquidation process, and list of stakeholders may not change with time, but the list of creditors and amount of claims may change. For example, some costs incurred during CIRP process, for example the interim finance, is eligible for getting interest for even for a period of 12 months after the liquidation has commenced. So that amount shall change every day with every passing, maybe a month. After every month, you need to update the list of the amount of unpaid CIRP costs in that manner. The interim finance providers are eligible for an interest. I'm sure all of us are aware. So up to 12 months during the liquidation period, the amount shall keep on changing, and that updation has to be made on IBBI portal. The list of creditors, the claims, those amounts are appearing on IBBI for the liquidation assignments, and these regular updations are to be made on that. So that was something which is not noticed by a liquidator in his routine jobs. So I just brought that to your notice. Commencement is the date of the liquidation commencement date marks the beginning stage of entire process. The appointment is made. IP is eligible to be appointed as liquidator if he and every partner or director of the IP of which he is a partner is independent of the CD. A person shall be considered independent if he is eligible to be appointed as an independent director on the board of the CD, is not a related party of the CD, has not been an employee of the firm of auditor or a secretarial auditor or cost auditor of the CD, of the legal or consulting firm that has or had any transaction with the CD contributing to 10% or more of the gross turnover of such firm in the last 3 financial years. A liquidator shall disclose the existence of any pecuniary or personal relationship with the concerned CD or any of its stakeholders as soon as he becomes aware of it to the board and to the AA. The IP shall not continue as a liquidator if the IPE of which he is a director or partner, or any partner or director of such IPE represents any stakeholder in the same liquidation process. The fee payable to liquidator shall be in accordance with the decision taken by the COC under Regulation 39D. If such decision has not been taken and no fees has been fixed under Subregulation 1, the consultation committee may fix a fee. In cases other than those covered under Subregulation 1 and 1A, liquidator shall be entitled to a fees at the same rate as the RP was entitled and as a percentage of amount realized net of the other liquidation costs and of the amount distributed for the balance period of liquidation. So this is the table. We are all aware about it. I'm not going through it because there's not much of a compliance under it. It is important that where the fees is payable under clause B of subregulation 2, the liquidator shall be entitled to receive half of the fees payable on realization only after such realized amount is distributed. Opening of bank account in the name of the CD is a duty. Public announcement has to be made within 5 days of his appointment in one English and one regional language newspaper, on the website of the CD, on the website of board, plus on the website of the IPE or the IP, if any. The assignment needs to be added at the online portal of IBBI along with copy of liquidation order. First, the assignment will be added by add assignment. Then post approval of the same, public announcement needs to be added. 31A says the first meeting shall be held within 7 days of liquidation commencement date. The COC shall function as the consultation committee till the conclusion of SCC, till the constitution of SCC is made. If there is no constitution, then COC will continue. The advice of consultation committee shall not be binding. Decisions different from the advice of committee shall be submitted to IBBI and AA within 5 days of such decision and shall be included in the progress report. If the liquidator is allowed to take decisions which are different from the advice of the consultation committee, and there is a pro forma given along with the in the attachments of the liquidation regulations, which talks about the reporting of giving reasons thereof, why and how the different decision was taken. So that pro forma has recently been added. Interestingly, the pro forma for progress report has not been added, and they have forgotten to add the format of the progress report, but this pro forma is already there in the liquidation regulations. The RVs are appointed under 35(2) within 7 days of liquidation commencement date in case the liquidator considers that the previous values available from CRP period are not the true representation of the values of the assets of the CD, and there has been a deterioration, or there enough time has elapsed and new valuations are required. The appointment of registered valuer shall be governed by IBPI circular so and so, which talks about only registered valuers to be appointed. Professionals, other professionals can also be appointed for a reasonable remuneration, which shall form part of the liquidation cost. Liquidator shall not appoint a professional who is a related party of the CD or has served as an auditor to the CD in past 5 years. A professional appointed shall disclose the existence of any pecuniary or personal relationship with any of the stakeholders or the concerned CD as soon as he becomes aware of it to the liquidator. There is, there is a web of disclosures and prohibitions. You cannot appoint, you shall disclose. So one has to be really sure of whether all disclosures have been taken or not. The best way is to take the disclosure of, as I told you in the CRP process, take the disclosure of all your partners, related parties, whichever are there. You must be having a list of related parties as per the law in front of you. You inform all of them that this assignment is coming up. If in case you have had any relationship during the past 3 years or 5 years respectively, you can just take an undertaking from them and keep that with you, and you can inform them. This is the best way to inform to them that in case there is any change in this relationship and you take up an assignment of any of the stakeholders during this process, during the process I am convening, then you need to inform me within so and so time. So that relationship has to be disclosed at all times. You deserve, you are entitled to get that disclosure from the respective stakeholder, the related party of yours, or the related parties of the stakeholders whom are connected in the assignment, and those disclosures should be kept with you, and on the basis of that you need to make proper disclosures to the IPA from time to time. It is very important to carry out that exercise once at the start of the process and inform all the related parties that you need to inform to me in case you come across any relationship going further. पास्ट का तो अंडरटेकिंग ले लेना है, पर फ्यूचर का भी साथ में इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए बता देना that you need to inform to me as soon as you come in, you take an assignment with such and such FC or anybody. The claims shall be admitted within 30 days from the liquidation commencement date. Where any stakeholder does not submit his claims during liquidation, the claim submitted during CRP shall be deemed to be submitted under section 38. So this is an important amendment that has taken place only in September 2022, and this makes the life a bit difficult for the liquidator. As per section 38 subsection 5 of the code, the claims can be modified or withdrawn by the creditor within 7 days. As per regulation 30 of the liquidation process regulation, the claim shall be verified within 30 days. He has to verify the claims collated during CRP but not submitted during liquidation process also within 50 days itself. The liquidator shall prepare an asset memorandum, and very importantly, asset memorandum, what all assets are to be included or not to be included are given under regulation 32B. The liquidator shall share the asset memorandum with IBBI and members of SCC after receiving an undertaking of confidentiality. It shall provide the following details, which may, with a period of time, the value of the assets, businesses, manner of sale, mode of sale, expected amount of realization, etc. These normally get changed during the process of liquidation, and after 1 year or so, in case there is any change, that deviation has to be given in the form of as a part of the progress report from time to time. Every quarter, any deviation from the original assumptions made by you have to be given under progress reports. 31A talks about the SCC, which shall advise on the matters related to remuneration of professionals, sale under regulation 32, manner of sale, pre-bid qualifications. This is where I was talking about the pre-bid qualifications are never assigned in case of auctions, etc. It is just thrown away to anybody who gives an undertaking that I am eligible under 29A to give a resolution plan. Reserve price, marketing strategy, auction process. Marketing strategy and pre-bid qualifications are the areas where more work can be done by a liquidator to justify his job. Fees of the liquidator, valuation under regulation 35, regulation 2, manner in which PUFE shall be pursued after the close of the liquidation. So these are all matters which have to be undertaken only after the advice of consultation or recommendation of the SCC. The voting share of the member of the SCC shall be in proportion to his admitted claim, the total admitted claim. Preliminary report is to be submitted to the AA within 75 days from the liquidation commencement date, which shall detail the capital structure of the CD, the estimates of its assets and liabilities. Progress reports, these are quite regular. We are all filing the progress reports from time to time. We are aware what are the contents. I'm just not getting into the details because time is short and I may not be able to complete my presentation. Therefore, the commonly known facts I'm not taking up. Liquidator shall present the progress report before AA on the below mentioned dates. We are aware that every 15 days from the end of the quarter, we have to submit. One important change, the progress report has to be submitted with IBBI also now. That was not there earlier. So that is important and to be kept in mind. March end reports will go to IBBI also. Similarly, December quarter reports were also sent to IBBI. Where any part of the property of CD consists of any land of any tenure burdened with onerous covenants, shares or stocks in companies, any other property which is not saleable or is not readily saleable by reason of possessor thereof being bound either to the performance of any onerous act or payment of any sums of money or unprofitable contracts. The liquidator may make an application to AA within 6 months from the LCD. Liquidator shall give notice to the persons interested in the onerous property at least 7 days before making such application for disclaimer to the AA. Sale of the CD as a going concern. This is important, and why this was introduced was again related to the main objective of the IBC, that is revival of the business if possible and considered feasible, and not the liquidation wherever it is commercially viable. Where the COC has recommended the sale under clause E or F of regulation 32, or where the liquidator is of the opinion that sale under clause E or F of the regulation shall maximize the value of the CD or the maximize the value of its business, if he shall endeavor first to sell under the said clauses. What are the said clauses? E talks about the sale of the company as a going concern, F talks about the sale of business as a going concern. So there are two different aspects. For the purpose of sale under subregulation 1, this is the subregulation 1, which we have just spoken. The group of assets and liabilities of the CD as identified by the COC under subregulation 2 of 39C of CRP regulation shall be sold as a going concern if the COC has recommended the sale. So that is done usually in the last meeting of the CIRP process. 39B, C, D are taken care of there, and under regulation 39C, the COC has to recommend whether the sale as a going concern shall be possible. If yes, then the assets and liabilities are identified. Where the COC has not identified the assets and liabilities under 39C2 of CIRP regulations, then the liquidator shall identify and group the such assets and liabilities which can be sold as a going concern in consultation with the consultation committee. Can someone give an example when and how either the COC or the liquidator can make an opinion and sell the assets and group them to be sold as a going concern? Resolution plan has not come or has not been approved. Even then they have made an opinion that it can be sold as a going concern, and how such grouping is done. Any practical examples? Okay, let me tell you. This happens when you have different businesses. We don't have the project-wise insolvency as yet, but yes, this option has been given under to the liquidator or the COC. The company is going under liquidation, can be sold their part of the business or part of the some grouping can be done for the certain group of assets and liabilities can be sold as a going concern, and that business can be profitable, which can be demerged or which can be segregated from the rest of the assets and liabilities, and thereafter and the rest of the assets can be sold via auctioneer. Are you asking about consolidation of assets? No, I was asking about the identification of assets and liabilities under 39C2 of CIRP regulations or 32A3 of liquidation regulations, which is where some grouping is done. That is actually not a grouping, that is actually a segregation from the whole lot of assets, that this group can be made and can be segregated from the entire lot, and this can be sold as a going concern business. Final report prior to the dissolution of CD, a final report is to be submitted, and a compliance certificate in form H. Both of them go along with the application for dissolution to the AA. Again, the documents, the record, physical as well as electronic copies of all the record, all the documents and information that he has created or come across or utilized during his process, during the proceedings of liquidation, the liquidator shall have to preserve them. Electronic copy for a minimum period of 8 years and physical copy for 3 years. From the date of dissolution before the board, AA, appellate, whichever is later. In case a replacement of liquidator during the process, the outgoing liquidator shall hand over the records to the new liquidator where the CD has been sold as a going concern. Where the CD has been sold as a going concern, then the record shall be handed over to the acquirer. Mr. Kapil, I'll request if you could just speak so that it's difficult for me to read the questions in the chat.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you said that unpaid CIRP cost would form part of the liquidation cost, but as per definition given for liquidation cost, it is not included in the.
I have not said that it is part of liquidation cost. I said that it is forming part of the list of creditors.
Okay.
While you update the data on IBBI portal, when
Okay.
you log in into a particular go to a particular assignment of liquidation, if there is an assignment going on, go to the list of creditors. That has to be updated from time to time.
So is there any regulation for this clause?
I think
That
there
we
is
have to-
one, but I don't remember that like that. The list of creditors is there on when you log in into your this thing. See, there are many areas, at least some of them I know, which are there available on the when you log in into your IPA or IBBI, and they are asking for certain information which you keep on furnishing there whenever you visit that website or log in into particular assignment to update something else. You also update some other things.
Okay.
But they have not formed part of the regulations or the circulars, etc. as yet. But I again insist that everyone should definitely keep on visiting these two websites and log in on a regular basis and check whether there is any pending requirement of any disclosure or anything, because you cannot just read through the law at all times. You have to do it practically, and while submitting the information practically, you might face certain challenges over there. Some information is required in the law, but the buttons have not yet been created, or it
Yes.
may not be functioning on the day on which you need to submit. Then you need to get in touch with the respective entity, like maybe IPA or IBBI. You may have to inform them with the correct screenshot that this was my last day, but I have not been able to upload the document, and this has been the error which I'm facing. So that will save a lot of money during one process, I think.
Right, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will check it. Thank you.
Bilkul.
Okay.
So these are the list of forms under liquidation regulations. I'm sure we are all aware about them, so I'm not taking up them right now. One important aspect is, I think, regulation 10. I may be incorrect on the regulation number, but schedule 3 provides for books of account. This is regulation 6, right? So books of accounts have to be maintained by the liquidator, and normally liquidators do not consider this as a requirement. This might come heavily on them in case there is an inspection or something. So my sincere advice is that whatever the regulations say, they are laws applicable on us, and we are, no matter there is no cash inflow outflow, you can make with whatever little cash you may be having, the cash ledger still needs to be maintained, the cash book still needs to be maintained somewhere in the books of accounts. A simple tally, a simple accountant may also be helping you maintaining the accounts, but the books of accounts have to be maintained. So any of the regulations, any of the requirements under even the fine print of the circulars, they are to be done by us. One day or the other day they might come against us, because non-compliance is a non-compliance under law, and we are seeing the kind of actions being taken against by the disciplinary authority. And when you read that 20, 30, 40 pages order, I must not say that, but there are cases against the IPs, and there are negligences by the IPs, and there are severe, sometimes very serious negligences by carelessness by the IPs in carrying out the processes. So compliances should not be taken very lightly, because we are getting remunerated by a process, and there is a certain professional manner in which that process has to be carried out. So it is not a burden, it is a proper way of doing it. So one must not take them as a burden. It is not that the process has to be convenient, plan aa rahe hain aur approve ho rahe hain. There are 100 strings attached to that process. So one must carry them carefully. Voluntary liquidation, I'll not take up the entire law related to the voluntary liquidation. If anyone has any query for that, we can talk. Important is it is
One query
Yes.
with respect to voluntary liquidation. If a company which is in voluntary liquidation, the declaration has to be signed by the majority of the directors.
Yes.
Can it be that if one of the director is not signing, will it do? Because
One of the
for majority of the directors.
majority of directors have signed, then it is all right.
Okay.
One,
And another question is that if there is any legal case pending, then whether this voluntary liquidation can be exercised, be carried out?
legal cases, you will need to analyze the nature of the legal cases before accepting any assignment. As an IP, you must go through the balance sheet and the available declarations and the undertakings by the directors, which are given to you informally also. आपका कोई जान पहचान है, आपका कोई अपना ही क्लाइंट है, तो उस पर आंखें बंद करके ट्रस्ट नहीं करना है, because डिग्री आपकी इन्वॉल्व है, right? So important steps are to analyze the position of the status of the company where it is lying. ठीक है, it is if it is not being reflected in the audited books of accounts that you have seen, आपने 2 साल के audited accounts देख लिए, आपने note देख लिया directors का, आपने valuation वगैरह ये सब जो law में लिखा है सब कुछ check कर लिया, but you must talk to them, you must understand where the company stands, and in case there are legal cases pertaining to value, there are contingent liabilities accruing on the head of the company which is going into voluntary liquidation, then you must take care of, you must ask the directors why this has not been shown in the audited books of accounts. If it is not shown, that shows the seriousness of the and the intent of the company, of the management, why they are taking the company to voluntary liquidation. You must apply your mind before taking such assignment, because it is very easy, because there is no AA involved, there is no fear of check, so it is only the IP who has to check why the voluntary liquidation is the only option that the company has.
Okay.
Right?
And another
So,
question is that if the in voluntary liquidation, if the shareholders are foreign, then the payment has to be made through banking channels to the
yes, proper banking channels, and whatever cost is involved, that will also be reduced, deducted from the amount available for distribution.
But if the any FEMA approval or RBI approval is to be taken?
See, for the companies having operations under automatic route, no approval shall be required at a time of repatriation of funds also. But if the business is requiring certain approvals, the RBI approvals, then definitely every repatriation of money, even if it is under IBC, that will require the same RBI approval at the time of refunding or repatriation or distribution of proceeds.
I mean, even if it is from China also, because nowadays
China, Pakistan, we have certain special rules for them. When even if the business is under automatic route, I would request sending money to any country, you should just check RBI rules for that, because in recent past there have been certain laws and certain circulars, RBI circulars especially, stating that sending money to these countries is has to be with approval or something. I have not read through them, but I have seen, I have come to know that there have been certain restrictions on direct repatriation. So that will not be as smooth as maybe sending money to UK or US.
And about income tax act, if any income tax precaution to be taken, because
see, precaution नहीं बोलते हैं उसको, necessary step होता है. One has to send intimation, though it is not written very clearly in the regulations or the act that you have to inform all the creditors. But since we know the liquidation process, since we know the CIP process, one has to, send at least an intimation to all the authorities concerned, so that they are able to find out. ये इतना घर में बैठ के प्रोसेस हो जाता है वॉलंटरी लिक्विडेशन, दैट नोबडी रियली कम्स अक्रॉस कि क्या हुआ. वो फिर बाद में ऑर्डर ही मांगते रहते हैं 6 महीने तक, हम कर आके खत्म कर देते हैं वॉलंटरी लिक्विडेशन, और इनकम टैक्स वाले कहते हैं ऑर्डर कहाँ है लिक्विडेटर के अपॉइंटमेंट का. PF authorities, income tax authorities, they do create problems for the liquidator thereafter. और liquidator सारा काम खत्म करने के बाद भी उनसे जूझता रहता है with no fees or remuneration. वो अपनी गर्दन उसकी फंसी रहती है with these authorities. So rather isn't it better कि वो first day पे ही along with the public announcement सबको एक intimation भेज दे, because इतना तो हमें balance sheet पढ़ के पता चल ही जाता है कि who all are the interested parties. है ना, wherever the plant was located or was operational, which may not be now operational or
No,
something.
my one
तो उन
point,
सब places पे
my point
What?
is with respect to any section in
No.
particular of Income Tax Act which says to require us to deduct any tax or otherwise.
No,
TDS is not required to be deducted.
TDS is not now required to be deducted, and even certain returns by way of one IBPI circular, certain returns are also not required to be filed by the voluntary liquidator.
Okay, fine.
What kind of return you are talking about? Not required to file?
The TDS return is not required to be filed by the voluntary liquidator.
Because he's not deducting as such. That's why.
Yes, he's not deducting because he's not required to deduct.
Okay.
The TDS.
Second issue is, say the company started liquidation process is started in the month of March or something like that, and in the April or May, the amount is distributed among stakeholders. But there is some amount pending because of the TDS to be received back, refund from the income tax department or something like that. So, what we should normally take steps in respect of the TDS?
You must immediately at the start of the process, you must write to all the debtors to give the money back to the company, because the company is now getting closed within such and such time. You must explain the provisions.
First the return has to go after March. Then only the refund will be claimed in the return. You see.
Acha. The refund is not yet there. On the current year itself.
Yes,
you
say, I'm just hypothetically I'm taking. Say on the 15th of March, the liquidator has been appointed, and as per the law, the moment the liquidator is appointed, the date of liquidation, commencement of liquidation starts on that day.
All right. See,
so after 1st March, the return will be filed.
My understanding in this case is that since the voluntary liquidation is now required to be completed within 90 days, therefore, there is no question of income tax becoming due within that period of up to May 15th May. This process has to be completed. So, in case the period is such that the return becomes due and the return is filed, then you should not file an application, even if that requires an extension to be taken by the approval of AA, or by way of, I think approval should be taken. It is not there in the regulations, but you must write follow up for the refund before filing the application for dissolution.
In my understanding, I distributed the whole assets except the TDS refundable in stakeholder within 90 days.
Okay.
So, and if the and I can wait because there is no time limit for filing the application to AA in my opinion. So in that case, if I wait for 3 months till the refunds comes back and also we distribute
it is
that
understood
amount and then file the to AA, will it is violating any provisions in my?
I think yes, because not filing the application will not conclude the process. So the process concludes only when 59(7) is carried out. The application for dissolution is filed. So saying that there is no timeline is not correct. I think the correct understanding is you should file an application for extension informing that in the best interest of the CD, this much amount is pending and we have filed the return, we are waiting for the refund, and thereafter that will be distributed to the stakeholders, and for that purpose I think extension shall be granted, but not filing any application and just exceeding the time.
No, is there any provision for extension in voluntary liquidation? I don't think so. Like in CRP, there is a provision if it is not completed within this period, then you need to have some extension kind of thing. But this is not in the case of.
Let me just check, because it's only in September that the provisions have been changed and the time limit has been reduced from 1 year to 3 months. Right, the process of voluntary liquidation shall be completed within 270 days from the LCD where the creditors have approved the resolution. And So in case the process continues beyond, the liquidator shall call meeting of contributors. That provision was there earlier also. I think I'll need to check this if anyone has those regulations in front of you right away. You can just check the voluntary liquidation regulations. If you allow me, I'll just check and let you know. But in all prudence, an application has to be sent to the AA asking for extension. Where the creditors have approved the resolution under 59(3)(c, then 270 days, and in all other cases, the process shall complete within 90 days. In the event the liquidation process continuing for more than 12 months, the liquidator shall hold a meeting of contributories of the corporate person within 15 days from the end of 12 months from the liquidation commencement date, and shall present a status report indicating progress in the liquidation. The annual status report shall enclose the audited accounts. No, it is not talking about writing to submitting any application to the AA, but I would still insist that in all prudence, one should inform the AA the reasons for the delay, and then you can file along the annual asset report and the minutes of the stakeholders meeting, the contributories meeting also along.
But ma'am, there is a problem because in
Yes.
what happens in CIRP, what happens? There is a main case, CP case there, in which as a IA, interlocutory petition, we file the progress report or whatever it is. At AA, in which capacity you will file the progress report or
See, a fresh application will have to be filed. In any case,
Pardon?
the application for a fresh application will have to be filed. In any case, the application for dissolution is also a fresh application, no?
No, you are. We are not filing right now the dissolution application. You see,
Even then,
filing the just for extension.
yes, that
Under
will
which
have
case
to be.
the AA will ask under which case you are asking. There is no pending case before us. Something.
But that will have to be a
There is
fresh
some problem.
case.
We discussed this matter with the lawyer. They are asking that there is no mother case lying at the AA under which you will be filing the extension or something like that. That is the problem we are facing. We also discussed with the persons.
See, in one of the matters, I faced a situation because of COVID, one bench was not working, the Chandigarh bench, and there was a difficulty sending the hard copies of the applications because they are only accepting hard copies. So we got an extension of 2 years in the voluntary liquidation matter itself. But yes, that was filed only at the time of filing the application under 59(7) only. At that time only the condonation was asked for,
Exactly,
and that was
exactly.
granted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right.
There is some technical issues.
Yes.
Extension before filing the dissolution.
Yes, there may be.
Yeah.
Any other lawyers who can comment upon this? Okay, let's move on then. I understood your point, Mr. Banka, and this is well taken. And in my experience also, the same has happened that at the time of filing the final application, that is application for dissolution, only that time all the events were disclosed. Right. So now is the preservation of records, which is similar to the liquidation and CRP regulations. All these records have to be maintained, preserved. Electronic copy for 3 years and physical for electronic copies for 8 years and physical for 3 years. And again, the registers and books, they are there for the liquidator to maintain the cash book, and many other ledgers are listed under regulation 10. So one has to maintain those ledgers also. Forms under voluntary liquidation regulations, quickly we can go through them. Form A for public announcement, proof of claim by OC, FC, workman, authorized representative, any other stakeholder, deposit of unclaimed dividend or undistributed proceeds. Form G. One thing very interesting happens sometimes. Some money we keep in the bank for unknown expenses or something, and the account is not closed. So ideally the process is the bank account has to be closed, entire money has to be used or deposited in the IBBI account, and thereafter only the application has to be moved. So this mistake also has been done by some of the IPs under voluntary liquidation. Then there is a form for withdrawal from the IBBI account, and schedule 2 is the format of books of accounts and ledgers to be maintained. PPIRP is a long subject, and let us only go through the main part of it, that is the pre-admission area, where there is a in the pre-admission area where there is a role of RP when the RP is appointed. RP is appointed at a little later stage. Here, there is a mutual understanding between the CD and the list of creditors, basically the unrelated creditors. Thereafter, an IP is appointed as the RP. The declaration by majority is given. The shareholder resolution is passed. Consent of majority of unrelated FCs is there. Report of RP is prepared thereafter, stating that all these conditions have been met. Application to AA is made for admission. Thereafter, the list of claims is updated, preliminary information memorandum is made, and the base resolution plan is made. And when the application is admitted, then the RP constitutes the COC. CD submits the base resolution plan if it is below the liquidation value of the creditors. If it is not treating them well, then the COC may require the RP to invite more plans, and thereafter the process is more or less similar to the existing CRP processes. Eligibility criteria for a CD, we are aware, but we must take care of these conditions while advising any of our clients or any company or a corporate person to go under PPIRP. We must take care of the prerequisites of the eligibility of a CD. These are the MSME criteria. We are aware. CRP and PPIRP differences I'm not taking care because there are some other important slides I need to harp upon. The benefits to the economy, the eligible norms or disclosure requirements for RP. This is important, subject to consent in form P1. The IP shall be eligible to be appointed as IRP or RP as the case may be if he and all the partners and directors are independent of the CD. RP shall make disclosures at the time of his appointment and thereafter in accordance with the code of conduct as set out in IBBI IP regulations. RP shall disclose item-wise process cost in such manner as may be required by the board. Pass a special resolution, prepare a base resolution plan, director's declaration that application would be filed in so and so much of time, PPIRP not being initiated to defraud particulars of the professional, approval by 66% of unrelated FCs, IP is nominated, and thereafter IP has to confirm all these have taken place in due compliance of the law. So the duties of RP under section 54F subsection 2, RP confirms a list of claims. He informs the creditors regarding their claims as confirmed, maintain an updated list of claims, monitor the management of affairs. He does not undertake the entire management of affairs, but he only monitors. He constitutes a COC. He informs the COC in the event of any breach of obligations by the directors or partners. Prepare the IM. He files the applications for PUFE transactions, if any. IPs have a dual role to play as advisor to CD till the filing of application to the AA, and thereafter as an RP to carry out the PPIRP for MSMEs. So here there is a role of an advisor, and it has to be carried out very carefully, whether to take the company into PPIRP or to get a settlement done between the financial creditors, between the creditors, basically the major creditors and the company. So that can save, it is basically the job of a mediator, and that can save undue burden on the NCLT. And if a settlement takes place prior to the PPIRP, and if the case, even if the case goes to PPIRP, the plan is made pre-hand, and most of the parties, most of the stakeholders have already agreed to that plan. So there is a saving, there is a saving of burden on NCLT. And PPIRP, you must be aware, it has its own benefits, and IPs have a huge role to play in that. Whether the PPIRP starts or not, IP has a role. The duties of IP under subsection 1 shall cease if the CD fails to file an application within For example, if they have given that 90 days we will be filing an application and they are not able to file that, the application for initiated is admitted or rejected by the AA as the case may be. The list of claims and preliminary information memorandum. CD shall within 2 days of PPIRP commencement submit to the RP the following information: a list of claims, a preliminary information memorandum, and thereafter the RP shall confirm the details provided to him. Timelines are, it must be completed within 120 days, admission or rejection by the NCLT within 14 days of filing the application, CD to submit a list of claims along with details. So these are the timelines which are applicable on the COC, on the claimants, on the RP, as you are aware, but the timeline written under point number 2 is seldom applicable. So these are all available under section 54. Before the discussion of PPIRP, before suggesting, before advising this to any client, my request is to first go through the section very carefully and to the regulations and the rules. There are 3 set of documents to be gone through by the IP, and before advising anything further to the CD, you must go through their books, the documents, information provided to you, so that tomorrow it does not come upon you that you suggested to them or you took through the process and it could not succeed. So my request is to check the intent of the directors especially, and the management behind the directors if need be. And the list of forms, there are a number of forms to be filed at all stages during the PPIP process also, and I'm sure while we'll be dealing with them, one of them comes from the rules and rest of them are there in the regulations. There are some judicial decisions relating to PPIP. I'm not taking up disciplinary orders by IBPI. I don't think we have much time to take up them up, but I request you to go through or subscribe to the IBPI's list of what's new, the latest updates. Every day you find one or the other order there, which is eye-opener for us, and every day we learn something new, that this we need to do and this we need not to do, and this is prohibited to us, and this may not be liked by our regulator. So I'm going through the application to adjudicating authority rules very quickly, because we are not, as IP, we are not filing the applications on behalf of the FC or OC or the CD, but we may be advising our clients in our capacity as practitioners or other professionals to help them file such applications. So the formats of the application to be filed by FC, OC, they are provided under insolvency and bankruptcy application to AA rules. And Form 2 is of course applicable to us. That is the communication by the proposed IRP for giving his consent. Form 3 is demand notice. If you are helping out a CD or an OC, then you must be knowing these forms. Form 5 is to initiate CRP process by OC. Form 5A by 5A is 93C. This is the section 93C of the code. What form was this? Any idea? Nobody. Similar here. Yeah. Avinashi.
No, ma'am. Please.
Okay, we'll go through this immediately at the end of this presentation. I need to. Okay, so these are the forms available under AA rules. One must go through them also, because we need to advise we may need to advise to our friends or clients. Now, what is the position of IPs under IBC? I wanted to come to this section very quickly because I didn't want to miss it at the end of my presentation session today. So there are certain opportunities which we'll see in the coming slides, but there are some prerequisites and some requirements. Like I told you earlier also, one must have general knowledge as well as working knowledge of certain laws and certain concepts, certain theories behind them, which are really, really important in our working. Characteristics of a professional in IP practice: you should be having a good mathematic competency, as a large part of your role involves the preparation of accounting statements. Large part of IPs have some form of law qualification or academic or hardworking enough to be able to read and interpret the laws, must be able to interpret the laws correctly. IP is required to prepare various reports to a number of different stakeholders on various issues. Therefore, report writing skills are very important. Communication is mainly because as an IP, you work with and for a number of different stakeholders. You need to communicate with them orally, written, and in the meetings also. So you must be having a good command over what you are informing to them on a day-to-day basis. Discreet and presentable, you must be able to keep the information you are given confidential and use the right wording in meetings with the client. This is vital, or brash or insensitive comments made in the meeting with clients who are facing debt problems can cause upset, even if it is unintended. Don't mention it. It may cause damage to your reputation. While conducting the COCs, one must be very polite and reasonably firm also at the same time. Commerciality: aside from advising clients purely on the basis of legal ramifications, you should also be mindful that the client will often weigh up their options based on how it affects them financially. So be aware of the commercial aspects. A quick learner: if you choose to work in IP profession, you have to be prepared to learn a lot in a short span of time. You must adapt to the ever-changing legislations. Thick-skinned: one area of profession that I mentioned at the start of my presentation today. Even before the start of the presentation, I informed that one has to be really having some shelter. If you are not prepared to deal with all kinds of stakeholders who may or may not be your stakeholders directly, but at the start of the process or maybe during the CRP or liquidation process, you come across so many people who pose threat to your reputation, who pose threat to your position, your legal compliance status. And if you are not thick-skinned, as they say, if you are vulnerable to such threats, then I suggest that you take a team along. Don't participate in such meetings alone. Some bidders, some RAs may start coming to you. The promoters may start influencing you in one or the other way. So advice is to meet them with professionals so that they are not in a position to take advantage of your vulnerability. You should have a sales skill. You should be able to present the business as if it is your own, and you should be able to market it in the best possible manner to fetch a price. What are the opportunities available under IBC for us? Of course, as an IRP, RP liquidation, but as a valuer also, as a consultant, as an accomplice, as an assisting professional to an RP. Roles and responsibilities of IRP, we are aware. Roles and responsibilities of RP, we have already undertaken. Liquidator, yes. Valuer. The code mandates appointment of 2 registered valuers. So valuers have to determine the liquidation value of the assets. Therefore, we people, if there are any advocates, please don't mind. But I must say that CACS and CMAs are already have already gone through so many valuation exercises during their practice for 15-16 years. They possess good knowledge of valuation techniques and valuation as a concept. And the institutes also have been offering specialized advanced courses in valuation for creating experts in this area. Forensic audit is another area. All of us by now must be having reasonable knowledge of what a forensic audit is, how it takes place, what all it involves, but we can also be a forensic auditor. Due diligence is these days it is outsourced to the professionals, and we can also offer our services as an expert in due diligence. Data processing: as per IBC, IRP and RP are needed to collate and verify claims. In a large operating company, data could be huge, so you can provide those services of data processing, accounting, or verifying claims, etc. Management of the borrower. The business of the borrower might require experts. For example, one of my friends, he has dealt with 3 real estate companies under CIRP, and all of them had been there was construction going on under all of them, and he became construction expert for us. So now wherever a real estate matter is considered, we inform him, and he normally usually gets to work over there as an expert, providing his special services for the construction work under CIRP. And IRP or RP may not be having such knowledge of the construction, the details, the appropriate knowledge related to the subject. So one can hire experts also. So you can be giving your services to the IRP, RP as an expert in that particular industry. Secretarial and legal work can also be an area where you can provide your services. Representing the lenders, we are already doing that. Representing before NCLT and NCLT, this is a vast area for all of us, and one must not ignore this area of working. Stock audit, CAs and CMAs are already doing this. Internal or concurrent audit, RP can appoint internal auditor during the business under CRP if the law requires him to. Monitoring and supervision of the resolution plan. For monitoring, you can be an expert in the monitoring agency or monitoring committee. You can be hired as such. The challenges. The main pillar of this law is the time-bound resolution. So we all face that tightness of time in our working and reporting time schedules, etc. So the challenge is to manage the company as a going concern without diminishing its value. Also, taking over a company and running it like a going concern is easier said than done. Imagine an IP with no prior experience of working with a steel company, maybe roped in for a project involving a debtor, which is a steel manufacturer. So how is he supposed to run a company without understanding the business? He doesn't have a luxury of time because he cannot take his time to understand the business. So therefore, important is to hire experts with the approval of COC in those cases. There are other practical issues like management and staff of the borrower against which the insolvency proceeding has been started. They do not cooperate. That is surely there in all the CRPs. We face that. We may face situations where promoter would try to stop them from entering the premise, forget about getting access to all documents. So this is the challenge we have all faced, and we are still facing them. No matter how many 19.2 are filed, but this is the most important practical issue that I have faced in my experience in all the CRPs I've seen. So these were the opportunities and challenges. So I end it here reasonably within time. I hope I added some value to the knowledge we already had today. And my serious request, please switch on the videos.
Ma'am, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, during liquidation, if financial creditor not relinquishing their security, so after 3 months, if they are not selling the security, whether the liquidator can take it back or you can only ask for the CRP cost?
Only ask for?
I mean, take back the asset?
You will include that in the liquidation estate, right? The law has been amended to that effect.
If the financial creditor are not selling the secured asset, which they are not relinquished, after 90 days, whether liquidator can take it back and sell it? Is there any?
Yes. You will add that to the liquidation estate.
Okay, we can add, but I think that the section is not that specific. It says only you can only ask for the CRP cost from the financial creditor.
See, they have not relinquished and they have not informed you about their decision, right? You're talking about that situation?
Yes. Not relinquished, and they are selling it through SARFAESI Act.
If they are selling it through SARFAESI or any other right of theirs, then you can only take the CRP cost share from them and the liquidation cost share also, if that is the case.
Liquidation share on, but we cannot
Yes.
take back the asset
No.
and sell it.
In case they fail to inform you about their decision as to whether to relinquish or not, then you are free to take it as a part of liquidation estate.
after 3 months also.
Yes.
Thanks.
Harmeet ji, I have a question to ask.
Hanji, please.
This is pertaining to the voting percentage of COC. There is a practical question which I am willing to ask today. See, my COC consists of 40% of financial creditors and 60% are home buyers, right? So we are putting forward the resolution plan to them. The problem is
Sorry, please
40%.
come again. Please come again, sorry.
I have a COC wherein 40% are financial creditors and 60% of the creditors are home buyers. So 40% of the financial creditors are very agile and alert, and they are interested in getting the company resolved. But out of 60% of the home buyers, only 30 to 40% are there in the COC meetings. So how do I get the resolution plan approved? Because if they only 30% or 40% of the home buyers, that is comprising of only 24% of the COC, are coming forward for the meetings and all. So how do I deal with it?
See, I have seen such practical situations with one of the cases we have dealt with in our IPE, and it was taken up very maturely by the RP. What he did was he held meetings with the associations, and especially those who were deterrent to the process, and he explained the law to them, and he explained that if the construction will start or if the plan is approved, then that will be in the interest of all of us and of you especially. And thereafter, after 2-3 meetings, it definitely took his time and indulgence, but those people did understand after 1.5 months of continuous pursuance. They understood the law, because initially they were not knowing the law and they were just weighed away by whosoever told them whatsoever. They were just, आपको यहाँ से कुछ नहीं मिलना, आप इनको नो कर दिया करो, आप एब्सटेन कर दिया करो, आप मीटिंग ही मत अटेंड करो, उन सब चीज़ों में घिरे रहते हैं ये लोग. एसोसिएशन के जो इवन ARs are not able to take full control of their votes, etc. So RP, if he wishes to actually give a logical conclusion to his process and he wishes to succeed by bringing a plan or something, or restart the construction, he must take some extra steps which are not written in the law. And in practice, he has to explain, whosoever is creating a problem, you will need to explain the law to him and what you intend to achieve.
It means what I can conclude is that I will need affirmative vote of all the 60% of the home buyers, right?
You can at least try for that, because if that does not happen, then your process is stalled, or it is led to liquidation, and that needs to be understood to them who are creating problem. Yeah.
It doesn't mean if they it means that we can conclude that all the 60% of the people have to vote.
It is not that they have to vote. You can just explain the importance of voting to them, and thereafter, whether they accept or reject, then that is the fate of the CD.
And suppose
at least
they
should vote. They should not abstain, because that
suppose
is.
Suppose they don't vote, don't even come for the voting also.
Then even if you have taken enough steps, and even thereafter they are not conforming to the law, then
I mean a kind of interface or interaction, or
then you will have to leave it to the fate. As per law, the company will may go to the liquidation, and all that will happen to them, because if they are simply abstaining from voting even after you have explained the situation to them, then you can't help further. But the intent is to start the construction. Intent is that they get the flats for which they have paid for. They are normally not interested in money, but they are misled.
Right.
But this can be handled during the liquidation period, no, madam? As a going concern, can it not be sold during liquidation?
It can be. That is why those provisions have been made available to the liquidator.
I think, Vinodji, you will get the answer when the company goes into liquidation.
Thank you, Harmeet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I would request participants to please ask any other questions if they have.
Madam, can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
What is the exact position for early dissolution of the CD?
I think there are provisions recently introduced in the discussion paper. I read it that early dissolution will now be made possible and soon it will become a reality for us. In the present law, I don't think early dissolution is provided for. Please correct me if it is there.
No, it is there. I think I cannot recollect exact section. It is there because I have filed such application.
Okay, you have already filed such an application. So what is the question for me, sir?
No, it is no question is because there is no such cases. Most means there are not such many cases. Even AE is not aware what to do because they are asking why you are not selling this property to any stakeholder.
See, in that case, as RP, I am sure you belong to one of those four professional categories which is required, and your experience and your knowledge and the practical implementation of that knowledge comes into play here. You need to explain in your application or in the hearing to the AA that why going through the entire process of CRP or going through the liquidation process, and why going through an early dissolution, what are the pros and cons, what are the practical implications, and why it is suitable for this kind of a business or a CD to go into an early dissolution rather than going through the entire, because there may not be any assets value which you are going to realize while going through the entire cumbersome process of legally selling those assets. So if there are no assets or there is little value in those assets, then there is no point.
Exactly. That is the point.
Those
And
need to be explained.
Exactly.
Since
We
there
are
are
insisting on
not
these
many
points.
cases, so bench may ask certain questions to justify why you have filed this application and justify
Correct.
your stand. I think you will go sail through.
Yes. Thank you.
Any further questions for ma'am?
Okay, I'll just give my email ID also here. In case you have any further questions, you can always write to me.
Sure. And you have conducted this session very well. We
Thank
have
you.
very latest knowledge also about regulations and everything. And it's a very energetic section. We did not feel any boring experience with this.
Thank you for that. But most of the people don't switch on their camera. That makes it boring for me.
No. For you, it's yes. Interaction is always good.
Yeah.
But session was very well conducted.
Thank you so much.
On the behalf of ICSI entire team, I would like to thank you for sharing your experiences in the starting of the session and your learning and knowledge in this PPT. It is very clear that it was an excellent presentation by you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out your time for today's session.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Your email ID.
Sir, it's mentioned in the chat box, and I will share ma'am's PPT as well with everyone. Once I receive it, I will share it with all the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Ma'am, tomorrow's session is on.
Sir, it will start at 2 o'clock only, and you can use the same link for connecting.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sir.